everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how you cannot do crazy stupid stuff, but instead do awesome, meaningful stuff with your time, budget, and energy. And you guys, I'm very excited for this level. First of all, because I have one of my favorite people, Simon, joining me for the conversation today, and we jam on like the concepts of performance and all of these things and what this means, but also because the underlying theme today is events. And for those of you who know me, you would know that first of all, I started my career as an event coordinator at The Brick. Shout out The Brick. Although it's not an advertised promo. They didn't pay me to say that. I love what an amazing event can do for people. And when we think about this in the context of thinking big, do bigger, which is the title of the show today, and perhaps the title of something more that we might describe later on in the conversation, there's a lot of ideas that happen. There's a lot of ideas that happen in marketing. There's a lot of ideas that happen just like out in the world that love to live inside our own head. And then our lovely little brain loves to say like, that's not for you, right? Like you're not the kind of person who goes and like does these things, who like achieves stuff, right? You're just you. So today we're going to talk about that in like the layers of events and all the other good stuff. So while it might be specific, it might specifically feel maybe event related, this is like a greater skill that is hopefully, because of our conversation today, becomes available to more people out into the world. Let's say hello quickly to Gary. Gary, thanks for joining us. We'll see if we get the Canadian crew out today because it is Canada Day. Happy Canada Day to my fellow Canadians. But I will tell you, I was too excited to have this conversation to not take. I had Canada Day totally off. And then I was like, oh no, we need to have this conversation. How convenient. I have nobody booked on July 1st because it's Canada Day. So we're talking about it. Before we get, we have Meryl's not Canadian crew, his American crew. Thank you for saying that you missed me. It's nice that when people miss you, even if it's just a live stream. All right. Simon has been on the show before, but for those of you who have not seen Simon on the show before, Simon, can you give us a little overview of who you are and what does think big, do bigger mean to you?
Wow, big questions. First of all, I was thinking about the title, Crazy Stupid Marketing, and I feel qualified on two of those three, but not the marketing. I'm pretty good at crazy, and I often ask lots of stupid questions. Marketing, not so much. But I sometimes I used to describe that my background was sports psychology. And it took me an embarrassingly long time, honestly, to realize that sports psychology is the wrong term. It's really human psychology. Once upon a time, I only did it with elite athletes and sports teams. Now I do it with everybody and anybody, really. Lots of business people, still athletes and sports teams. But across the board, because this stuff applies to all of us.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is like so often when we think about the skills that really enable humans, like I talk about them often on this show in the framing of marketing, but these are not just like marketing skills. These are not sports psychology skills. These are human skills that allow us to think big, do bigger in whatever arena we decide to do, whether it's elite sports and you're an Olympian or whether you're a marketing coordinator that's like, I wonder why this email doesn't work, right? Like there's so many thoughts that go through our brain, but there's a journey, let's call it a journey from the thought to actually doing, but also like I will call it empowered doing, right? So like the doing that actually accomplishes things instead of doing just to do, because there's a lot of doing just to do that happens as well.
Yeah, completely. And, one of the things I often reflect back on, I've met, worked with and studied loads and loads of genuinely world-class performers. People who have broken records, people who have become world champions and won World Cups and picked up Olympic medals, all those sorts of wonderful things. And they all describe themselves as ordinary people. They're right. They are. They're ordinary people who have become world class through that journey that you talk about. When you trace it all the way back to where it started, where that journey started, it started with an idea. It started with a thought, a little picture in their head. Maybe they could ...
Right.
And that moment, that little spark, I think is really interesting. Because for a lot of people, it fizzles out really quickly, or they extinguish it really quickly with one of those thoughts that you shared earlier. Oh, I couldn't do that. Not me. And then it's gone.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too. Let's start at the beginning of the journey, which is the spark. Before we do that, let's say hi to Miss Hartley. Thank you. Hi, thank you for joining us. And Dennis in Calgary. Hey, friend. Great to see you. Okay, let's talk about the spark, because last October, I was in London for one of Simon's events, which was amazing. And you had a speaker, Adam Walker, who has swam the Ocean 7, which even as I think about it now, I'm just like, that's crazy.
It genuinely is crazy.
High five, Adam. I have no interest in ever doing that. And even though I love swimming. But the interesting thing I love about his story, I just think it's like a brilliant example of he was on a plane and watched a movie about a guy swimming the English Channel. And he was like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. And he wasn't a swimmer.
Right.
And not in a serious sense. I mean, okay, he could swim, but he wasn't a competitive swimmer. He wasn't a world-class athlete. He was just a regular guy.
He was a sales guy
who sold soft drinks and had sold toasters. And there he is sitting on a plane thinking, that looks like a good challenge. I fancy doing that. I fancy taking on that one.
Well, like the thing that I always think about is how many other people watched that movie. Millions of people have watched that movie and not had that spark to be like, yeah, that feels like something I want to do. And I think that recognition of what sparks you is an interesting component of the journey, because I think a lot of times people will be like, oh, that's why this movie was made, right? To inspire people to swim the English Channel. And you're like, well, no, like this is the number of people who have watched this and not done that.
Yeah.
Because like that's our own experience of it. And then again, our thoughts maybe not completely negate the idea, but they like definitely deprioritize the idea to be like, that's silly. That's what everybody thinks. And I can never do that.
And if you think of all of those people, there'll be some who are sitting there thinking, I'd love to do something like that. And it's of those people, a small proportion that would even take the first step.
Right.
Lots of them would sit there going, I'd love to do that, but there's no way I could because I'm not a swimmer. Right. Well, nor was Adam. I've never even swum across a lake, never mind a channel. I could only do a few lengths of my local pool. And they would stop themselves in that moment and extinguish that little spark. Right. Others might say, okay, I'll give it a go. Let's see if I can swim 500 meters. And if they encountered a few little challenges along the way where it didn't quite go to plan, they weren't quite as good as they thought, it didn't happen as quickly as they thought, then that would be the point where they closed everything down.
Right. And I feel like so let's talk about this, Simon, because like I feel like a lot of people have a lot of ideas. Right. And one of the things I quite often say is like experiment with them, like find a way to like experiment in like a really small, short time stamp, not expensive way where you can test your like passion or commitment to the thing. And some people will try it and then be like, nope, that was just like, I must have been really tired on that airplane because I was half delusional and thought this was a good idea.
How many free drinks did I have exactly before I had that idea?
Yeah, that was a long flight. But because I do think there are like sparks, and specifically like I'm one of those people who has all of the ideas all the time, and I can't do all of the ideas all of the time. So inevitably there are going to be pieces of things that filter out along the way. So how do we tell when like we are still sparked, but something is hard versus we aren't sparked? We thought we were sparked, but we're actually not sparked by it.
Well, like you, I have the dreaded curse of the entrepreneur, which is a million ideas a minute.
Right.
And I've noticed that there are some of them that hang around.
Mm-hmm.
They hang around because they're important. They keep tapping you back on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, come on, you ought to spend some time thinking about this one.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a really good one." And they're not the ones that just disappear. I mean, some of them, they're like leaves just blowing on the wind. The idea comes, the idea goes. But some of them, your brain kind of keeps hold of and says, this one we ought to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And if I find that I really want to bring that to life, I also, if I'm really honest with myself, I know whether I've given up on it because I lost faith in myself often, or maybe I encountered a couple of challenges that I hadn't expected and I can't find an answer. So I give up. And there are some that I kind of, as I start getting into it, I start thinking, okay, the reality is maybe I don't really want this one.
Right.
I sort of thought I did, but this isn't what I expected. And actually, it's not that I'm giving up on it. It's just it didn't fit in the first place. And I didn't realize that right at the start because I hadn't got enough information. Because right at the beginning, all you've got is a picture in your head. You don't really know reality. But if you can be honest with yourself along that journey, I think you figure out very quickly whether this is something that you really want and you just need to find ways through the challenges, or whether actually it doesn't fit and you thought it did when you started out.
Right. Or I think there's a piece of that puzzle too of understanding what about it is exciting to you. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. This is ages ago now. And we were talking about basketball and how I used to I felt so strongly my identity as a basketball player and she asked me if you break that down, what are the things that you love about basketball? Because there's also things you don't love about basketball. Like I was injured all the time. Right? I did not love being injured all the time. Nope. That was definitely not part of the thing I loved about it. So it was interesting when I started to break it down. I was like, because I felt like I had a unique role in the team. So there's a team component of that, where I got to be trained specifically for what I'm good at. Okay? So it's about optimizing our own skills. And I had a leader who was, it's funny now because I didn't realize it at the time, but as an adult, I'm like, he was so good at helping us find our thing, our one thing that we could contribute meaningfully to the team. And it wasn't about us contributing all things. It was about us contributing our thing. And hence why I spoke at his celebration of life and cried, because this was so meaningful and I didn't realize it until later in life. And so when you start to look at, I can actually be a team in lots of different ways. I can participate in team in lots of different ways, not just playing a sport. I can look for people's sparks and give them opportunities to move along those things instead of just assembly line of humans being you shall all be the same. And so it was super interesting to say that's where the spark comes from. It doesn't actually come from, I put it into playing basketball as an arena, but it was some underlying components. So I think when we start to assess what is the thing we actually love about this, in not a judgy way, but in a pure curiosity way. And this goes for, we're kind of talking about bigger life things here, but this goes for your marketing as well, folks. This goes for if you're writing a book, or if you're trying to parent, right? This can be helpful in everything. If you look at what is fun about this, what lights me up, and get clarity on that, not because you can avoid the other things. Parenting comes with a big block of stuff, and you can't necessarily be I don't want to feed this kid. No, I'm not passionate about that. Well, sorry, you still have to do that one. But you get really clear on what is exciting about it to you, and then you find ways to feed that oxygen. Then it's also, I feel that is one of the pieces of the journey that then allows us to it's like the fuel for the journey. It like keeps us fueled for the rest of the things where inevitably we're going to find out something we don't know. Inevitably we are going to make a mistake, come across a hardship, get redirected, right? Like none of us have a linear path of humaning. And so it allows us to like stay connected to that thing and kind of takes the pressure off the how. Like, well, how will I learn to swim across the English Channel if I have never been a competitive swimmer?
Yeah. And when we engage our curiosity properly, our curiosity will find our way through. It will answer the how, not in one go, but it will follow that path. I've just finished my book on curiosity, and there are a couple of bits in there that I think are really helpful. I find them helpful personally, but I've also noticed them being helpful in high performers and high achievers. And one of them is what I call the yellow brick road, the yellow brick road of questions and answers. So you start off with a question, you find an answer, but it's never a complete answer. It's always a partial answer, and it always comes with more questions. But if you follow those, you'll find some more answers, but you'll also find some more questions. And so this ability to follow that yellow brick road is what takes people through. And if we go back to Adam as a swimmer, one of his first challenges came before he even swam the English Channel, which was his first of the Ocean 7. And it was a challenge with an injury, with a shoulder injury, that just wouldn't go away. He had surgery once, he had surgery a second time. It was partially successful in the surgeon's words. And the advice he was given by the surgeon was to give up on the Ocean 7 and just focus on leisure swimming in the local pool. That was it. But Adam's curiosity kind of drove him to find a different answer. So if loading my shoulder is a problem, is there a way to swim without loading the shoulder or taking pressure off the shoulder? And he started to think about how athletes who throw things, javelin, discus, shot put, how they generate force from their feet through their hips and translate it through their shoulder. They don't generate power from the chest and shoulder. So he thought, would that be possible in swimming? Could I apply those same principles? Let's give it a try. And in doing so, he invented an entirely new stroke that never existed before. And when we think about real innovators, Dick Fosbury, who came up obviously with the Fosbury flop and reinvented high jump, he did so because he was an engineer who was starting to think about how you could pass over the bar but leave your center of mass under it. And he knew that arcs were a good shape and started to wonder whether you could incorporate an arc in some way as a shape, whether you could twist your body in that way to get over a bar. And so if we can start to harness the power of curiosity and start taking ourselves along that little question and answer yellow brick road, we might find that we encounter some answers we never expected, and we end up in places we never thought we could get to.
I love that too, because like, first of all, now I have all the ideas about the yellow brick road, which we can talk about later. But one of my favorite questions is, how can I? Right? So a lot of times people ask the question, can I do that? Like, can I go over without with keeping my gravity low? But then you get, again, back in that, you've put yourself in a yes or no answer state, right? Like, can I or can't I, yay or nay, instead of being like, how can I?
Yeah.
This is a great idea to do this. How can I do that?
Yeah.
And then you get the like, Thomas Edison tried 1,000 different ways to make a light bulb before he made a light bulb, right?
Yeah.
And we say these things, but very rarely are we finding our own mechanisms to turn on our desire to the point where I will try 1,000 different ways to make this work, because I'm pretty sure this is possible.
Yeah. And there's a twist actually on how can I, because can has got like a success outcome to it. If we soften it to how could I, we give ourselves permission to look for options. And we don't have to come up with an answer.
Right.
But we give ourselves permission to explore options. Hey, just let's go for a dozen. Let's go for 15. Let's go for 20 things that might potentially work. And 19 of them might not, but that's okay. because we're only asking how could we at the moment. We're not committing to doing any of them. We're just going to explore for a while.
Right.
And going through that process, I think, is really powerful, because there's a point in this process quite early on that I describe as going from not me to why not me.
Mm.
Can we make that switch so that, well, why not me? Maybe I could. And I'm not saying I can just yet, but maybe I could. Let's explore. Let's find out. Let's give some stuff a go.
Right. Well, and I think that's the important piece too about the self-belief, is that nobody who achieves a great goal was at their destination when they decided to achieve that. Zero people. That doesn't matter who you talk to who seems successful, whether that's business success, sporting success, life success. No one was at the destination. It was that they decided that this is available to me. I'm gonna go for it. And there's, again, I love this concept of the yellow brick road, because I think a lot of times people assume that the desired outcome of answering of a question is to get one answer. One question, one answer, right? And that's what the ratio is. And I will ask one question and I will get one answer and I will know all of the things. Except this is like 0% of the time the way it works, right? And humans are actually super good at curiosity, right? We're always wondering, why does the government do it this way? How do you think we got to the moon, right? Like, by people asking questions, but also by deciding, like, we're going to go to the moon.
Yeah, but there is a process with curiosity which children are brilliant at. But of course, as we go through school, ironically, in many cases, curiosity gets switched off. And when we come out into business, curiosity gets switched off. And people, they don't like exploring anymore. They just want an answer to something. That's that. There is a neurological reason why we like certainty. But of course, the love of certainty limits us in so many ways. And the ability to take what I call a moment of wonder and turn it into a question, and then commit to at least going on that first little part of the path, that first brick on our yellow brick road, and understanding that our incomplete answer is an invitation. It's not frustration. The fact that we haven't found an answer is brilliant, because then we can ask another question, and that'll take us further than we would have ever gone if we'd have found a complete answer first time.
Right. Well, yeah. And then that makes me think about like the power of ecosystems and like getting ideas out into the world and sharing them with people to create more dimensionality, right? Like, an idea in my head is one dimensional. If I get it out of my head, it can become 2, 3, 4, 5 dimensional, because now I have other people's thoughts, and not just because, again, not through a linear path, right? It's not like I generate the idea and then I pass it to Simon and now I no longer have it, right? Simon has it and he turns it into a thing and then passes it on to the next person. And it's like that game of telephone that by the time it gets back to me, you're like, well, this isn't what I said at all. And so that's what happens in if the linear stream of ideation. But when it is a mosaic, right? Like, I participate the whole time. Like, I hear Simon's perspective on that from a performance point of view. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder if like the number of marketing things I have compared to Olympic training since I met Simon is like substantial, but not because it's a better way to talk about it. It is a way that makes sense to me, and it's an additional layer of framing that has added more dimension to my ideas. And like, this is why I love talking to people, because every time I talk to a new person, there's a new dimension of this. And I think too, then that could get to the point where people are like, well, it's too big, right? Like, maybe I could actually go do some stuff if it's me and a couple of other people, right? But now if I let this out into the world and there's like 1,000 people that want to come and do this thing, like, now I have to manage this. Now I need a structure. Now I do. And then like, I'm not passionate about managing it. I'm not passionate about the structure. So all of a sudden you become so disconnected from the idea that it doesn't go anywhere. So what are some of the things, Simon, that you see are important as we like move from idea, and now I've got like enough oxygen for my idea that I'm going to move into like sharing this idea with other people for the point of building on it. What are some of the important components of getting into that part of the journey?
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, particularly with really innovative leaders and organizations, is they almost like they guide all of this through really great questions. And it's the amount of focus that they can give a question usually dictates how guided that thinking is. Now, you can still have diversity because you can have lots of different perspectives, but you've got different perspectives that are all trained in helping us move to a certain point or getting us to move in a certain direction, rather than diverse thinking that takes us off in a million different directions.
Yeah. I think that's in it. Okay, well, let's talk about that though too, because then we also said like don't necessarily commit to one how.
Yeah.
Right. So when we talk about these perspectives being trained on a one thing, like how does that get translated into how so often? Like now there's just one how to do this.
So if you think about starting kind of narrow but widening to explore, and then pulling it back down again because we'll need a solution.
Right.
We can go really wide and then we can come back down, and we don't have to come back down to one thing. We could come back to 3, 4, 5 things and test those if they're the favored 3 or 4 or 5 things. And then if we want to, we can narrow down to 1 or 2, or we could find that out of our 3, 4, 5 things, 2 or 3 of them actually combine really well.
Right.
And that one of them on their own probably doesn't do exactly what we're looking for, but 2 or 3 in combination might. And this is the ability to use questions as the guides here. And it doesn't have to, they don't have to work to limit us or close down things. They could widen things out, but they kind of tell people when we're widening and when we're closing and when we need to commit.
Right.
So I often talk about moving from could we to can we to will we.
Right.
So could is really wide and we can explore. Can comes down to what's viable, and what will we do is what are we going to commit to.
Right.
So you know, we can go through those sorts of processes, and we can take quite a lot of people through those processes, and we could actually say, hey, you guys, can you go and explore this and see how this might help? Could you guys explore this way? Could you guys explore that way? Guys, could you look at all of these things and see what combinations that we might have, or how things might be able to combine, whether there's a blend of some of these ideas? So we could task lots of people to interact with this idea and how we turn it from an idea into execution, how we strategize around it. We could do that just by using questions more effectively.
Well, yeah. And I think one of the things that I love that you said, because I'm all like diverge, converge, right? Like this is the process. At some point, if you're not converging, then you're probably just woo.
Yeah.
But I think it is also an important note about, so if you combine that principle with the yellow brick road principle, then what you get is converge, but I converged onto like, what will I do? But what will I do might be an experiment that's related to a component of that, right? It's probably not the whole solution. But then the pattern that you create is that we're doing something about this always, right? I actually wrote an article about it earlier this week about the like micro experiments. And like, what could I learn in 7 days? And now again, like this is how could I learn something about this in 7 days? Is there a micro experiment that I can create that will give me this? Now, can everything be 7 days? I don't know. Some things can be 3 days. Some things can be 5 minutes.
Yeah. One of the amazing entrepreneurs that I met a few years ago, and I'm still very good friends with, she founded a chocolate company called Green and Blacks. And I don't know, have you come across Green and Blacks? Is it only a UK thing? Did it get across?
No, I haven't heard of it. And I am my preferred chocolatier, but continue.
It's very, very high end. It was the first proper fair trade organic chocolate brand in the UK. She started it from her flat, not very far from here in London. She started it with £20,000 in savings. She didn't have a budget to do market research on a big scale. She didn't have the ability to, she didn't have mass advertising budgets or anything like that. And she said she created it with a couple of questions and a couple of bars of chocolate, and she just went out and found out what people thought. And she made the start point so small it was impossible not to do it.
Right.
And she said that micro experiment, I just needed the opinions of 3 people to get off the mark.
Right.
That was it. And once I've had the opinions of 3 people, I've got movement.
Right.
Now I can build on that momentum.
Right.
But if I sit here with the idea, and this chocolate that I think could be amazing, and even if I draw out what I think the brand could look like or whatever, I'm going to achieve nothing.
Right. And how much time goes into that like design process of things that I feel like there is like, I work a lot in the innovation ecosystem, and I think a lot of times people are afraid to go and share their idea, that it feels safer to just like keep it to themselves and build on it quietly. And pretty soon you've spent years and way more than $20,000 on designing a thing that hasn't been in front of potential client at all. Yeah. And then it actually, I feel, I mean, my background's also marketing research, right? So like, I just go ask the people. The people are right there. Just like go ask them. Then we get so afraid that we've built so much that now someone won't like it, that like we've created this weird like tornado of not asking people. And because, and like, there will be people out in the world that think your idea is nuts, where it doesn't like align with their belief system. So they think it's weird or undoable, or like everyone's carrying around their own human filters, right? And that's fine. But even like I always tell people too, because when people do market research, they love to just do like an email survey or a Google Forms survey these days. And I'm like, go out and ask somebody. Like, what would you say? What if they put your chocolate in their mouth and are like, right? Like, what would you do? Which you don't know until like you do the thing. So I think it's getting these ideas like out of our head and like into the people, whether that's like 3 people, which I love, right? Like and this is something I tell people too, like, yes, we all know the mom test, right? Like moms love us and they're going to think that our idea is good, and blah, blah, or they're going to think our idea is bad and just like, they're going to mom, right? So like, don't just ask your mom, right? But go and ask someone who feels like low hanging fruit, right? Like you don't have to go and ask your ideal target audience at the biggest company that you would ever potentially target. You don't have to go right to that, right? Like you can just go and be like, oh, I have a few friends who have like, who I know who are totally curiosity peeps too. I could like go and share my book with them. And like, yeah, you could. It's probably a great idea.
Absolutely.
So like that low hanging fruit, I think is important. And it's still like outside of you. It's still getting that. If we're talking about like an idea or a spark getting oxygen, right? Like there's only so much it gets inside of you. Once it gets outside of you, there's a whole lot more available.
And the problem, of course, if we sit there with our idea and all we do is invest into it, the stakes become higher when we put it into the public domain.
Right.
And there's one of the books I read when I was at university, fantastic book. It's called Courage to Create. It's by an existential philosopher called Rollo May. And he says that when you create something and you put it out there into the world, there's a huge risk. It's the risk that it won't be accepted, therefore you won't be accepted.
Right.
That if people don't like it, they don't like you. You know, this has come from you. This is something that you've almost given birth to. So you've got a huge emotional attachment and investment into this thing, whether it's poetry that you've written or a song or an idea that you're putting out there into the world. And of course, the more we invest into it, the higher the stakes are, the more risk we're taking.
Right.
If this is a really embryonic idea that we share out into the world and somebody says, yeah, I don't think that's going to work, or don't really like it, it's not as big a risk to us.
Right.
If we spent years of our life cultivating, creating, honing, sculpting this thing, then put it out there and somebody tells us it's rubbish, whew, that's like a dagger to the heart, that. And
Oh,
some people might say it's a risk too far.
right. Well, and I think that it's like, we see this play out in even what may be considered really minor things, right? Like I've seen this play. Oh. Choking. It's fine. One moment.
Take some water. Take some water.
Wow. Okay, water break.
Have you been watching the World Cup? 25 hydration
no.
break. We missed it. We're 10 minutes over.
Sorry. Yes. Stay hydrated, folks. Very important. We see this play out in like really minor things too, right? Like I see this in corporate with people creating social media posts, right? Yeah. Like my CEO asked me for this and I spent all day working on this post. And then I'm going to send it out at like 4:00 in the afternoon. And heaven forbid now at this point that someone has feedback that is helpful.
Yeah.
Because now you've put like so much into this that you don't want it to be wrong. And now you start to get defensive about it being wrong. Instead of just saying like, hey, let's put out a thing. This, like one brick, right? One brick. See what happens. Oh, someone came back with an answer. Second brick, right? Because now it's a piece of information. So now I'm going to ask next question. And you can, I mean, I don't know about you, Simon, but like I spent a lot of years in corporate, and the number of things that were just like, why did this take 8 hours to do? Yeah. Right? Like this should not take 8 hours. And I think in corporate, there's a little bit of like, I'm paid for 8 hours and this is all I need to do today. So I have like spent 8 hours on it. Which is a different conversation for a different day. But like when we look at that kind of behavior and it's happening in like a small component of our job, and then we roll it out to the world and be like, well, I really want to like create this thing or make change in the environment or like do big stuff. Like we don't have the patterns. We don't have the behavior and the practice to do that because we're getting a lot of practice on the daily doing the other thing.
Absolutely. There is another, I think, big risk. And entrepreneurs, I found, understand there's a risk of doing. Absolutely. There's always a risk of doing. The risk of doing is we might look stupid. It might not work. We might waste our time, all that sort of stuff. The risk of not doing could be higher. And the risk of not doing in some cases is that by the time you've created the thing and polished it and it's perfect, actually you've missed the window. It's
and
now,
who is it for?
Redundant. You know, the sell-by date has expired on this thing. Somebody else got there first. And in corporations, I've noticed that there are a lot of people who are very risk aware, but they only see the risk of doing. What they don't see that is that if you don't do, somebody else is going to. Right. Somebody else will get there first. Somebody else will get there better. Somebody else would have gone through the iterations that you didn't go through. Right. And that's probably a far higher risk these days.
I think that's true. And it's funny, I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but it was about the concept of like people aren't buying, right? Like people aren't buying things. And I'm like, that is not true. First of all, Amazon has never made more money, right? Like people are buying stuff, folks. People are buying stuff based on their own decision mechanism, with which you don't know. We can guess as much as we want from a marketing funnel, but I don't know someone's buying process, right? Like I never will know it. And it's not the same for every single person that goes through my funnel.
And it might not be the same tomorrow as it was today. And it won't be the same today as it was yesterday.
Right. So then like, what are we chasing? We're chasing something that is never catchable. And we get caught up in this, I will say practice, because that's what we're doing. We're not intentionally practicing that, but we are practicing chasing a unicorn.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist. Like there's so many things and like our brains say that that's safe, but then it's really interesting to think about this like risk of not doing. And I think that commitment to exploring the opposite side of that risk is an important contributor to what gets people to not just do things, but to do bigger things.
Absolutely. Because actually there's also a risk to playing small and playing safe. And that's that somebody else might come in with something that's just better. It's bigger, it's brighter, it's bolder, it's better. And that by playing small and playing safe and thinking small, then actually we are missing out.
Yeah. It's funny because I have a Post-it note on my computer that says, no more thinking small.
Yeah.
Because this is also like one of the interesting like human components of this is that we start to believe that playing small matches us. Like I am small, and so I play small, and therefore that's compatible, and then we're good. Like Nicole says here, like you never know until you try. Okay? But if you're only ever big, like, and I mean, I heard this lots of times on the basketball court, like play big, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not that big. I'm not that big for a basketball player. And so like you need to go on the court and like be bigger than you are. You have to be bigger than you are. But so many times in like entrepreneurship, I mean, it's just like corporate work, parenting, right? Like so many times just in our human experience, we're convinced that we are small. So let me just do small because small is simple and easy and within reach and all those things. But then I also think there are a lot of people who are constantly at odds with that, right? Like I'm playing small and I should feel this should be good. This should be enough, right? And then you get these things like the words that went through my head is like, is this it? Right? Like, is this all? Because that feels like not big enough.
Yeah. I was over the weekend, I was in Vienna, and one of the places that I really, really wanted to go to in Vienna was the Viktor Frankl Museum. Viktor Frankl had a huge impact on my life. And his words have profoundly shaped the way that I live, the way that I work, my practice, my philosophies. And so I wanted to go to the museum, which interestingly is tiny. It's on a second floor. The doorway's almost hidden. You can't find it. I mean, it's on the map, but we walked past it twice without even knowing it was there. And it's only 3 rooms, but incredibly powerful. And one of the ideas that Viktor Frankl shared is that freedom and responsibility go hand in hand. You have the freedom to live whatever life you want to live. You also have the responsibility. And that in tandem, for many people, that's scary. It's far easier to think, oh no, I'm just a ...
Right.
To put the little walls around ourselves, say we're only capable of this, we're only expected to do this, we'll be satisfied with ourselves if we only achieve this. And to create that safety so that we almost give ourselves the illusion that we don't have either the freedom or responsibility to live the life that we truly want to live, do the things that we truly want to do, have the impact that we want to have.
Right.
But ultimately, that's part of our human existence.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of Spider-Man. Like great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And we also like, this is where like life crosses over, right? Like business and life too, because we have these definitions of what is responsibility, making sure your kids eat, cleaning the toilet, right? Get your kids to school on time, right? Like all of these things that maybe aren't necessarily deeply connected to the joy and the spark. And so then when we get to this idea of like, well, I have to have more responsibility in order for me to have more power, let's use that phrase as in like personal power, expressing yourself and doing what you want to do. Like I don't want more responsibility. So I guess my trade will be that I will have less power because I don't want more responsibility. But the thing that it like, I can't remember which Spider-Man movie. It's one of the Tom Holland ones where he's just like sitting and waiting for an assignment, right? And he's like, I just want to help someone. Yeah. And Tony Stark's like, nope, you just have to wait.
You're a kid.
Right? Sorry. But like, that's the spark, right? The spark that's saying like, oh, can you just like let me go. And it's like a car revving in a garage that's just like, and it's like, it's also exhausting, right? Like our bodies feel that, and we're like constantly revving all the time, but we're not going because we're not letting ourselves go because we're convinced there's more laundry out there.
Yeah, yeah. And there probably is, but if we start to think about the impact we could have, the good that we could do in the world, the contribution we could make, and start to think that actually, maybe we have a responsibility to live all of the life that we could live, and do more of the things that we could do, have more of the impact on the world that we could have, change more of the lives of the people around us. If we fully embrace that, then we'd probably say that playing small didn't fit anymore.
Yeah.
We have to play at least a bit bigger.
Right.
And maybe not, we wouldn't necessarily leap into playing huge all at once, but we could take a step. We could take a baby step and then a step and then maybe a stride, and start working our way to just letting the brakes off a little bit, taking down some of the boundaries that we'd created and the walls that we built around ourselves. And then we might see what was truly possible. And going back to some of the examples earlier about Adam sitting on a plane and lots of other people thinking, oh, yeah, I'd love to do that, but not doing it. Some people aren't even thinking about doing something on that scale.
Right.
But actually, if they put their mind to it, I'm sure they'd be capable. Because Adam wasn't special in any sort of, he didn't have any amazing talents that were only accessible to him.
Right. Yeah. And I think the thing, again, like, I love that story because my experience of that is like, that guy's crazy. Why would anybody want to swim across the English Channel, right? Like, let alone 7 of the world's hardest swims in the entire world.
The English Channel's one of the safe ones.
Right. Yeah. It's like the easier end. And you're just like, no, I'm good. But also, I think the really interesting opportunity for people is to say, like, okay, well, this isn't about me being inspired to do the same thing you're inspired to do. It's about me being inspired to do my thing, about me playing to my full capability and capacity. And that's not, it shouldn't look exactly like yours. Like, again, whether you're thinking about this as like full ecosystem, or if we're going to solve climate change, right? Like, yeah, it's great for everyone to pick up plastic off the beach, but at some point I don't need everyone to pick up plastic off the beach. I need people to do other things too.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things I love about, shall we call it like community ideation, or like ecosystem solutioning, which is really what a lot of people end up doing, because it takes more than one person to accomplish anything at the end of the day. But like, this is not about, first of all, me figuring out that if everyone just picked up plastic, then we'd be good. Right? Like, well, first of all, we already know that that's not true. But that doesn't mean that the guy who lives down the street from me, who is always picking up trash and putting it in the bin, isn't a valuable contributor to the ecosystem. I shared the other day, and like, it might sound funny, but from my perspective, that contributes to me, because now I don't feel like I have to do that. I can go and do what I would do to collaborate and contribute to my community, which is a different contribution. And when you layer all of those individual contributions up, well, now we're actually talking about something that is bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we actually started to join some of those dots, as opposed to have lots of little dots that were just sort of operating on their own, if we managed to join some of those and find out how they could connect with each other, become more than the sum of the individual part, we'd also find that conversations sparked out of that would never have happened otherwise. Right. And if I just think about our conversations over the last 6 months, 9 months or so, about creating an event together, what we've created, I know I wouldn't have come up with on my own, because if I like any other human being, I kind of fall into what I call my thought furrows. You ask a question, you get an answer. You ask pretty similar question, you get a pretty similar answer.
Mhm.
And it's only when you work with other people, flip yourself out of that thought furrow, that you do something very different.
Mhm.
You get some completely different perspectives, and you work on building on top of each other's ideas so that each iteration takes you sort of forward and into a slightly new place
Mhm.
that neither of you would have come up with on your own. And
Right.
if you look at, just the power of two people doing that, that's pretty good. If you added a third or a fourth person in there with different perspectives, different backgrounds, different ways of solving problems, different life experience, you find out that you end up creating something that a pair wouldn't have created on their own, three wouldn't have created on their own. And you get to entirely new possibilities and entirely new places. If you then add in another dimension of not just about how you create the ideas and how you strategize around them, but then how you go and bring them to reality. If you've got a collaboration of people that can bring that to reality with their networks and connections and life experience, and that opens up an entirely new set of avenues that would never have existed before.
Mhm. But
So
dare I say, Simon, that there feels like a certain level of ease and maybe fun that comes with that maybe people don't connect right now to like doing big things. We are like so focused on the responsibility component that we forget that like once you get, and I know a lot of people who watch the show are like generative conversation peeps, right? And
yeah,
get jazzed by the new ideas that come up because we're in conversation with each other. And like that is the fun part, right?
mm,
There's so few people I know who have fun trying to figure out all the things by themselves. You guys,
yeah,
and we
and
don't
again,
have to do that.
yeah, this is the freedom side of freedom and responsibility.
Right.
But it's also, I think, when I look at the power of curiosity also drives us, and it's not just because there's something wrong, something to solve, something to fix. It drives us into new territory because we want to find out.
Right.
There is
Oof.
an excitement to that. There's a joy to that. It's adventurous.
Mhm.
I often there's a characteristic within curiosity that I call adventurousness. The ability to be adventurous, knowing that adventures probably aren't easy. I mean, whatever books we've read during our life, whatever movies we've watched, we know that adventures aren't necessarily easy and straightforward, and they're not comfortable, as Tolkien told us. When we watch The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, we know that they're not comfortable either. They're those nasty things, as Bilbo described them once. But they're also incredibly valuable.
Mhm.
And they could be exciting if we wanted them to be. They could even give us joy as well as giving us sore feet. And
Right. Yeah, the trade. And I think like this is so fun because like most of you who know me know this. And I mentioned it already in this episode. I went to Simon's event and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a room full of people who really want to do big impossible things. And these amazing speakers who are actually showing you to like how they did it their way. And then I was like, what if we could do an event that actually takes people on that journey so they aren't just inspired at the end of the day, they're doing at the end of the day. They are doing the thing that they thought was impossible a day ago.
yeah,
Is that possible? And I mean, we talked for a long time about it. And we're like, nope, that's not going to do it, right? Like, because if you do this, then this is the like state of being that people are in, and people can't ideate from that state of being. And there's like a fun, and again, like I do think ease, and not because it's not complicated, not because it's not complex, right? There's a lot of
yeah.
complex things that go on in anything that's related to humans, right? But because like, oh, like what if we could do this? And so, folks, Simon and I made an event. And it's
Drum roll,
called
please.
it's called Think Big, Do Bigger. Because one of my marketing rules is tell people what it is instead of being overly fancy with a name. And so this is what it's about. It's about not just thinking big. We don't have to just think big. We've been told to think big for years. It hasn't solved the problem, right? So thinking big is not just the problem. We do need to open the door. Right? We need to open the door to thinking big. We need to turn on sparks. We have to give sparks oxygen, and that oxygen has to start from within, but then it also has to come from outside. And then there's this like whole web of collaborative ecosystem that is available to make these ideas more dimensional. And so like, what if we did that? So we are.
Ta-da!
Da-da-da! The Think Bigger, Do Bigger event is happening in Calgary on April 26th and 27th. 2027, not 2026, like I've been telling everybody, and they're like, that's so fast. No, next year it's coming up. And then I started saying 6, 7. Like, it was perfect. But like, this is what it is. And it's not an innovation conference. It's not a come and take notes. It is a bunch of humans in a room humaning and moving all of our ideas forward because we all decided to do that together.
Yeah. And we deliberately didn't call it Sit Big, Listen Bigger.
Right.
No, we didn't call it
Or
that.
Sit Big, Listen Smaller and scroll on your phone.
That's right. We called it Think Big and Do Bigger.
Yeah. And there may be some movement components that are.
Yeah. And actually, this is all about walking away, being able to stretch our thinking and think bigger than we used to. But then to turn those really crazy ideas that we've got that look massive, look daunting, look ridiculous, turn those into reality. Years and years ago, I wrote a book called Could I Do That? And in that book, I've differentiated between smarter goals. I'm sure you've heard of smarter goals, specific and measurable and all that sort of stuff, and dumber goals. And dumber is daft, unrealistic, mental, bonkers, exciting, and ridiculous. And so we could stretch our thinking, maybe come up with some dumber goals and some dumber targets and some dumber strategies, because they are daft, unrealistic, mental, bonkers, exciting, and ridiculous. But then go and make them happen.
I actually, so years ago, I've been through a program called the Landmark program, and it is a personal development thing. And I remember going to the guest night, and the person leading the session was like, be unreasonable. And I'm sitting there in the audience being like, what are you talking about? I'm totally reasonable. Everything I do makes sense, blah, 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 blah. And it was really cool because they reframed the definition of unreasonable to be like, there will always be a reason to not do it. You can come up with infinite amount of reasons whenever you want to not do it, how it's unsafe, how it's irresponsible, how you don't have time, how you don't have whatever. And they're like, but what if you didn't? That would put you into the category of being unreasonable, and you have done a thing because you feel pulled towards that thing, because you say the thing because it comes out of your mouth. Right. And then people are like, well, that's unfiltered and that's irresponsible. Blah, blah, blah. Like, this isn't about being reasonable by the definition of the term, as there's always a reason not to. But what if there wasn't a reason not to? What could be possible? And I will tell you guys right now, we have our facilitator roster already locked down. And it is people who, like, I can guarantee if you are in a room with them, you can't not leave with more dimension to your idea. And we don't have just one of them. We got a whole fleet of them coming from all over the world to like add dimensions, but not because we need them to add dimensions, because they create the conditions for us to all add dimensions to each other's stuff. So there's so much potential in 2 days to go from this sounds like a good idea to like, what could I do to make this a thing? And I'm like super excited about it.
Me too.
And Simon's coming to Calgary, folks. So it's going to be awesome. April 2027 in Calgary. That's where you want to be. If you are interested, early bird tickets are currently available to people who come and watch this show, because it's not that many people who come and watch the show. But there are only 34 of them remaining because they are being purchased. So if you are interested, or if you're interested in exploring more about what this event is about, because we didn't talk that much about the event, but we talked about all of the concepts that drive this event earlier in this conversation, reach out to me, reach out to Simon. Super happy to chat about it. But can you guys imagine just getting 500 people in a room that have co-decided we are all moving each other forward and what that could look like? I mean, and I'm so excited it's in Calgary because this is now like the Calgary ecosystem gets like first dibs, like easy access to these things, right? Like come and be with us, like get these ideas out in the world. And again, not just out in the world, but out getting oxygen so that all of these fires have enough oxygen to keep burning after you leave After 22. Mitali, you can get to Calgary. You could totally get to Calgary. There's direct flights.
There are people coming from Europe. There are people coming from.
We already got people coming. Coming from the US,
California, and
So like you can, but this is the point. Right?
I've already told people who are in New York, Oregon, Texas, this is on your doorstep, is the way that I've positioned this.
I mean, Calgary's not that close to New York, but it is closer to New York than London is to Calgary.
That is my point. That is my point. It's on their doorstep.
Yes. Come. And but it's also a good, like, you guys know me, I'm authenticity. Authenticity is my jam, right? So like, these types of things, these types of invitations, it's not for everybody. It's not supposed to be for everybody. In fact, there's only 500 seats in total. So like it's only for 500 people. And that includes me and Simon and the facilitators and all of that too. It is 500 people. That's a very specific 500 people who are like, yes, this is what I want right now. This is the thing that I want to do to move on this. And I mean, like, we're talking about next April. So there's some cool stuff that will happen in the in-between though, because we've been talking about how do we think big do bigger before we even get to the event. So that's why early birds are so early. But like, if you get yours now, you're not just going to sit on an early bird ticket. There's going to be so many cool things that can happen for you in the interim. So this is your opportunity to just say like, oh yeah, I want that. I'll tell you, Mitali, fun facts, personal story. When Simon announced his Do the Impossible, from the moment I heard about it, I was like, yep, I need to be in that room, right? And I like turned on my flight deal thing and I was like, but I turned it into a real big thing. I was like, well, if I'm going all the way to London, then I have to go I can't just go for a day. That's ridiculous. So like I have to go for like a week. And then if I'm going for a week, I probably have to bring Nicholas. And then if I'm bringing Nicholas, then I probably have to bring my husband. But then if I want to go to the conference, then maybe I should bring my parents. And then it turned into this like whole big thing. And then I remember talking to my coach about it. And she was like, do you want to go on a family vacation or do you want to go to the conference? And I was like, I want to go to the conference. And the next day, flight deal, $782 from Calgary to London. That's insane. Direct flight. Just saying, they're out there for us. But like, this is about us like choosing the things we want. Is this the thing we want to choose right now? And it's not bad or wrong to not choose it right now. It's just an opportunity to say like, yeah, or like people who have gone to so many innovation conferences and you come away with like a book of notes, but like nothing changes in your day to day at work. Nothing changes in how you feel about your ability to innovate. And like, we refuse to let that happen at this event. And so do we have all the bricks in the road? No, we have until April 26th, 2027 to lay all of the bricks. But there's so many things that are like being revealed on the day as we build towards this, that it's just is super, I don't know. I'm super excited. I love events. I've never hosted a conference and I'm like super jazzed about what the humans in this room are going to accomplish in 2 days. I could talk about it for a very long time, but now we have been talking for a very long time. So Simon, wrap it up. You have a train.
I do have to get a train. I think you wrapped it up almost perfectly there. If, like anything else, if this is something you want to do, we find a reason to do it. Not the reasons not to do it, because they'll always be there. Find a reason to do it.
Right.
And as you did, you said, I'm coming. You found the flight. You jumped on the plane. You came from Calgary to London for our conference in October. That's because you want to do it. You find a way to make it happen. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, Simon, always a pleasure. I'm super excited for Think Big, Do Bigger. And remember, folks, it's not just the event, but all of the other concepts we talked about today are also parts of the journey to thinking big and doing bigger. So you can take those today, put them in your marketing team, put them wherever you want, right? Like, and just let's all go do bigger things at the end of the day. And let's make sure they're your things, not someone else's things, which is the stupid part of crazy stupid marketing. With that, friends, thank you so much for joining us on this Canada Day. And until next time, permission to do you.